Thank you so much for having me. I am excited to be here with y'all and to take some time just to get more into flow. And I think it's critically important to do that in so many ways. You guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, good. Thumbs up. All right, perfect. And so I think it's just one of those things that I used to say a long time ago about why all things that we experience in life, you may call it a lower consciousness experience or suffering or the choice of the words that you rather choose, but it's all due to resistance in some way, shape, or form. At least that's been my journey of my experiences of what I've felt has been true and so forth. And it's so easy to say, hey, just go from resistance and step into the flow and you're good to go. And I wish it was that easy. Even for myself, it isn't. And I work on this very often to try to always make sure I'm staying in a state of flow. So tonight, we're going to go into some of the things that when I was thinking about what to present or how to present, it's looking at what are the main things that I see as an issue, not only just through my own experiences, but also through coaching clients that I've worked with for the last 6 years, patients that I've worked with, and seeing how they create resistance and how it shows up in their body, in the nervous system. And these patterns, it fascinates me how things are so universal when it comes to this because coaching, you get it through people are in their heads a lot, so are people patients, but how these things manifest and how they play a role, and then when they truly learn to trust and get into flow more and what that really means, then all of a sudden it's just like everything just starts to work itself out. And then I know for myself, it's always been like I'll laugh at myself and go, "Yep, a voice in my head says, yeah, you could have just made this easier. Why'd you make it so difficult?" And so my intention for tonight is to try to make things show a perspective, bring some science, have some fun, and to really help in some way, shape, or form. So I'm looking forward to diving in here. So let's go ahead and let's begin. So the root problem from what I've seen in my stuff is, and I got my little thing in the way, but it's okay, is that you feel stuck. How many, raise your hand if you ever felt stuck before in something, right? We've all been there. And it's one of those things of trying to understand the aspects of, well, why do I feel stuck? And when I was generating images, I was like, in my head, I love how AI can help me with things now. It makes it so much easier because I was like, I want to feel the dilemma. I want to be able to show a visualization, at least in my world of what it is, getting into the head, getting stressed, having worry, having this. And then there's that inner being that's just always there, always calm, and always still. And so, but the problem is we get this feeling stuck in some way, and what the brain does, and whenever we're not achieving something that we desire or seeing an outcome, is it feels like it needs to step out and take control. And so it'll start to, for some people, that's workaholic. That is, I need to start doing more. I need to take more action. You will see this type of aspect in the type A driver personalities where they're just like, I need to take control. We need to work. I need to grind harder. I'm going to go harder, go more force, put that energy out there. And you're going to end up in burnout. This is why 60+% of entrepreneurs are burned out. And I think, and people in general, my in chiropractic, I work with a lot of families, and so it's like I see more and more moms burned out than ever before. And I just got back into practicing just about almost a year ago, and so it's one of those things where we're constantly seeing this, where we just got to keep doing and doing and doing, and instead, looking at the blocks of what is my life, what do I need to do, right? How many times have you said to yourself, oh, this is the problem, this is why, or this is this. And we look outside. Maybe we even blame somebody or blame something. Right? It makes it easier to blame someone, doesn't it? And I've been down that road too. And it's one of those things where instead we're looking at what about asking the question, when we see resistance without, that means there has to be resistance within. And when we're feeling we need to do more, one of the advices I give a lot of my clients is when they're feeling in this state of overwhelm, panic, fear, worry, and they're looking into the future, or they're not getting, maybe you understand law of attraction and you understand the universal laws, but they're just not working. And I'm putting that in quotations, that it's not working for you and you just don't know why. And you're like, I don't get it. I'm doing everything right. Don't know why that's not happening. And really it's that stepping back and looking and saying, well, What's going on inside my world? What am I focusing? What am I putting my attention to? I'm going to dive a little deeper in this a little later, but I want to just plant some seeds here of the talk, because when we I'm going to share with you guys in this, one of the things in this workshop is to, if I can create awareness to know exactly when you're stepping out of flow, then that's going to drastically change your life. And I'll share some stories, my own personal journey stories. I have clients' stories and so much more to go into that. But this is where we look at when we're feeling stuck. I tell clients all the time, when they're in this state, don't do anything. Well, no, doc, I got to do this. I got to do that. No, no, no. Take a step back. Relax. Trust the process. You're getting too much into the head. Let's stop putting that energy there, and let's let that just die down, because there's a natural rhythm to life. So why don't we just let it die down? And when we get back in that more balanced state, then we can go ahead and we can come back and look at it. And you'll probably come from a different perspective. And so, for those who like a little bit of science, that's how the brain works from a neuroscience perspective. We get too much into a part of our brain right above our ear. It's called the amygdala. We can call it Amy for short. There's a lot of things of what it does, but one of them is fear, worry, and anxiety. And so, when you're in that state, this is what elevates your heart rate. This is what makes you shortness of breath. And so, we're raising and firing up this part of our nervous system that's called the sympathetic, or I call it the gas pedal. It revs everything up. And when we do that, you lose your perspective and thinking, your future planning. You're able to diverge in thinking, be able to see things in different directions. How is it all going to play out? And you get into a fear state base. And so when we can just let that energy calm, it allows the brain to dismiss that energy there, and then eventually we can come back to I'm pointing to the front of my forehead, which is the prefrontal cortex. And that's what I'm talking about, of the executive center of the brain. And this is basic neuroscience. And you can allow yourself, and there's tools I'll share with you guys of what we can do to be able to do that and help in that way. And you guys probably already know them already, but it's just something that to add to the mix when it comes to all these things. But when we look at the aspect of then resistance, what is the resistance, right? What is the aspect of, what does it show up as? So what I want you guys to do is just go ahead and close your eyes for just a quick second. And while you have your eyes closed, I just want you to take a nice deep breath in through your nose and then just breathe that out. Okay. Now, as you have your eyes closed, I want you to try to be aware. Where do you feel tension in your body? Or where do you always hold tension within the body? Do you have it in your traps? Do you have it in your pelvis region, your knee, your big toe? Where does it show up? And this is where you'll notice, if you feel tension within, that's one of the signs of resistance, because the body doesn't lie. So just sit there with your eyes closed and just keep being aware and see what shows up. And this is a great body awareness thing that you can always do. I love doing it from time to time. And you guys can open your eyes if you like. And it's one of those things where, for me, sometimes I'm like, I feel good. I feel great. I'm doing all right. And then when I get into a meditation or breath work or something, I'll sit there and I'm like, all right, let me just see what my body tells me, because my body knows more. It's way more aware than I am. Let me use it as a tool. And I'll tap in and I'm like, okay, I feel tension in my traps. I feel like I'm rounding forward. All right, that's that gas pedal part of that nervous system. Let me just breathe, relax. Let me just breathe that tension out. Let me just get this resistance out of me so I can be more calm and more at ease. And that helps drastically when it comes to a lot of that. But a lot of times, and I try to teach this to patients, resistance isn't always obvious. It doesn't always show up. Sometimes it may just be stress. Maybe it's thinking, again, like I said before, you want to force things. You want to go, want to push things. I want to do this. It could be the workaholic mentality. And I get into that state where I'm like, I just need to be productive and I'll feel good. I'll feel good about myself if I'm just being productive. And that sometimes I have to wager that in my own experience and be like, okay, how do I keep that to make sure I'm not taking this resistant energy and trying to do, because then all it's going to do is create more resistance. So, but that's where these resistance can come. And like I said earlier, it's tension. The mind tries to control. You get into overthinking. And then from there, you're like, I have to do this, or this is the only option, or this is what's going to be. And if we keep staying in that state, this is where burnout becomes. And you've exhausted the energy systems of the body. And now all of a sudden, this is where we're in a state where I don't have a vision or a goal. I don't feel optimistic about life. I'm just living day to day. And this is where a lot of people are, and today, at least the experiences I'm seeing. And so this is where we can want to break out of that. And the easiest way to do something like that is when we can surrender. Now, I could do a whole workshop just on surrender. But surrender, a lot of times people think it's something that is being weak or, not being able to. I'm not going to surrender this. I'm just trying to get a lot of business clients where they come with their mentalities. But surrender is like it says here, it's trusting that process, right? Because whatever you resist is going to persist. You can never escape something that you give attention to. So a lot of times, and this is where I tell a lot of people when it comes to like manifestation, those who say manifestation doesn't work. And it's like, no, it does. It's just, where are you putting your energy at? Are you surrendering to the process? I say something to clients all the time: have a fixed vision, be fixed on your vision, but be flexible on the journey of how it gets you there. And this is where this happens in business, money, career. This happens in health, relationship. You can take this in any facet of your life. It's all universal. So the surrender process, what is, surrender is knowing that we don't let the monkey mind take control. This is why I said, if you ever feel like you have to take action on something, or you're getting stress or urgency or a scarcity type of thing happening, take a step back. If you're over worrying, take a step back and do nothing. Nothing is still doing something. And I can't tell you how powerful this is. I've had a client where I had him do that for a whole about 3 weeks to a month. He did nothing. And his business grew 25%. And he couldn't understand why that happened. He literally looked at me and said, "I'm doing nothing." I said, "You're still doing something." He's like, "No, no, 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 don't play these word games with me." I said, "Okay, it's fine." But he was like, "I don't get how I'm doing nothing, but yet I'm still growing a business with no action." And I looked and I said, "We'll work on that." Of course, he was just starting working with me a few months in. But it's because whatever we're projecting out there, whatever we're focusing on, whatever we're worrying about, whatever we're not getting, right? A lot of times, I can ask everybody here, what do you want in your life, right? And I heard Abraham Hicks say this one time, and it was fascinating, of a mind opener for myself. She asked the crowd, "What do you guys want?" And everyone's saying, blah, 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 this and that, this and these things. She says, "Great, you're focusing on the lack." And they were like, "Huh?" I said, "Because why do you want those things?" "Well, because this is the next level where I want to go to. This is that." And she goes, "Yeah, because you're on the lack." And I was like, that's really good wisdom right there. Because a lot of times, instead, it's where I'm at right now. I want to enjoy more of where I'm at. I already have these things. I want to experience more of where I'm at, so that if I can appreciate where I'm at now, more will come. So getting back to surrender, it's learning the process of letting go. And I'm going to share two people that they're pretty advanced souls or advanced human beings in their time, Jesus and Buddha. When Jesus was at I think it was the Garden of Gethsemane, if I'm saying that correctly. But basically, the day before he was going to be crucified, right? That was the time where I feel like, when learning about Jesus and his ways, it was like he let ego get in the way a little bit, but then he also surrendered in the process, where he knew what was coming the next day. And I think it was Luke. I'm actually going to read it. It says, "Father, if you are willing to take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." Right? It was a process of surrender and letting go, even though I don't know what he went through. It's one of those things, but letting go of your personal will to know there's a greater good to serving you and others at the same time. Buddha went through the same thing. I mean, he was under the Bodhi tree, and it was one of those things where I think it was, what's the name? Mara, I think they call it, was a tempter who was he was going to sit there until he hit enlightenment. And yet, his mind, which is we all have it, the monkey brain, ego, you can put any name you like on it, was starting to try to seduce and threaten all this different stuff to pull him away. But yet he didn't fight, he didn't run, he didn't go ahead. He just looked at every challenge as is, and he still stayed in that stillness, trusting process, fully present. And so the true moment, in my opinion, with Buddha is one of the things that it helped me in my journey about this is just how to have radical stillness regardless of what's showing up. Because when we look at outside, and this is going to get to the next slide here in a minute here, but when we keep looking outside ourselves and allowing to see what that is and what's showing up in our life, and we're personalizing that. I'm not getting where I want to be here, or this is happening, this is going to may happen here, or we play these scenario games in our head. We're letting the mind dictate instead of letting our true power dictate. And I'm going to get to that in just a little bit. But this is where we can get into the aspect of control versus surrender. And this is where I want to get most of you guys, if you're not already, but getting more into this. And you can tell AI messed up because I put two T's there. Sorry, I just realized that right now. Um, but illusion versus alignment, right? And this is where when we step into flow, what is alignment? What does that look like? And I'm a chiropractor, so I'm not going to get into what alignment is in my world on that, although there's similarities. But it's this, you guys heard this before, most likely, about flowing upstream versus downstream, right? When we're ever flowing upstream, we're going to get exhausted faster. I remember I was one time studying turtles and how they swim because they don't swim that well. And I was going out into the ocean and I was struggling to get out into the ocean, but yet I had a sea turtle next to me who was cruising along, just riding the waves. And somehow he was gaining speed on me. And I'm like, how the heck is this turtle getting ahead of me? And so I'm sitting there in Cancun in the ocean, and I'm like, I started to sit back and I'm like, let me just watch what he's doing. And it just hit me right in that moment where here comes the wave comes through, right? Pushes you back. And then there's a calmness where you can gain speed. And the turtle, when the wave came, I was fighting it. I was like, I'm going to push through it. I'm going to keep swimming over it. Yeah, that wave was kicking my butt. I got tired. And so, but I just watched it. And all of a sudden, it would just let its arms, when the wave came, relax, flow. And then it took action when it needed to. And that's how it was gaining speed. And I sat there and I'm like, that makes sense. When we surrender to the process, things happen faster, usually. We're not fighting. We're not creating resistance. We're letting flow happen. And so I'll try not to get too esoteric here, but like when we let things flow, when energy flows through us, there's no blockages. And we can look at that in many different forms. But when we just let our energy just surrender, no resistance, not clogging it up, not creating a bottleneck effect to everything, things will start to work in a faster way. And things will start to attract quicker than we could ever imagine. But we have to learn to let go of the control because we can't control everything. We can't control what's going on in the world. We can't control what's happening in another country. We can't control what's happening in our town. The only thing we got control of is ourselves and how we react to things. That's it. We have nothing else to control. So, and this is, even for someone like myself, when I started learning universal laws, it was one of those things where I was like, okay, so law of vibration, if I just do this and I do that, great. Then if I just do this, then this will lead to this, and I'll manifest what I want. Makes perfect sense. Beautiful. I'm all in. And it wasn't happening. And I was like, I don't understand. And it kept not happening. And I was getting more frustrated because I'm like, I'm controlling. I wanted to control things. And then all of a sudden I had to learn to let go and know that one of the mantras I use in my life is everything works out for the greater good. Everything that I seek in my life is going to happen regardless. And I surrender to the process no matter what shows up in my life, even if it's painful, as much as I can to surrender and let go. I wrote a whole book on this called A Walk in the Dark. And it's literally about control and surrender and what you can do and how you can do it and so much more. And it's utilizing the process of surrender because once we understand this principle, truly, you may understand it. Some people say, well, I understand these things already. Great. How's it working in your life then? Because when we can understand that what we resist persists, what we keep giving attention to only is going to create more of. And we start to really hone in on how we react to things that show up in our life. Because the fact is about life, when we talk about surrender, total surrender, is that it took, 13.8 billion years the universe has been around. It took 13.8 billion years for us to be here right now, for us to have this moment right here at this time. You didn't have to do any of it. You didn't have to be a part of it. You're here in the moment right now. We all come from the stars. And it's the life is happening. Moments are happening for everybody in their own realm. This is where when it comes to that aspect of surrender, sometimes when I get caught up in my head, I always have to go, hold up. It took 13.8 billion years for me to be here, right here at this moment, at this time. How many things had to happen for me to be right here at this time? And when you think about this, it may not seem like a lot, but it's like you can have a dinosaur back when they existed. I love this story where it's like the dinosaur back where it existed had a big foot and it slammed on this area and it created a lake. Years later, there was a bar that was there, and your great 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 grandma and your great 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 grandpa met there because of the dinosaur putting its foot there. You get where I'm going with all this? So it's one of those things that things happen in a very unique way. And when we can surrender, it just opens the door to more infinite possibilities. You're allowing more in, more abundance. You're allowing more opportunities for better relationships. You're allowing for more opportunities for better health. They always say the people when I was learning energy healing, my one of the teachers I had always said, doctors are the worst healers. And I was like, that's a little harsh. And he was a chiropractor. And I was like, but then he explained it where he said, your mind has medical knowledge of what you think the body does. But yet we only know 1 to 10% of what the body does. That's why I love being a chiropractor. I don't work with that 1 to 10%. I work with just what's all all the things that I don't know that is going on also. And it was fascinating because it made more sense in my life in understanding that the more we can let go, because that's what it really is, right? If someone who doesn't know about the body can do more better healing, it's because they don't know what's going on. They don't have that ego that this is how things should be. This is the way it is, compartmentalizing. Instead, they surrender to the process saying, I don't know why, but I just know that I can do this and I get indicators and I know this and I just do that and these things happen. It's just like when I talk to patients now, it's the same thing when I'm working on healing or working on with adjustments. Patients go, "Oh, doc, is that going to help me with this?" I have no idea. And they're like, and I'm like, "Well, we don't treat anything, so I have no idea if that's directly going to help you with that. But what I do know is over time, as we keep doing the work, the self-healing mechanisms will help. We'll raise the consciousness levels with the body. And when that happens, your body will heal and function at a better state. So I don't want to make this about a chiropractic thing, but I hope you're understanding that surrendering in the process, not knowing to need all things, but understanding that we can't control every aspect. All we can control in the moment is your state of where you are. Tony Robbins says everything is just a state, of where you are and the being of where you is and what you experience in your life. And when we can start to understand that it's really the only thing we can control aspect is how we react and trying to be mindful of that every single moment of our life, well, good portion of it. It's kind of hard to do it every single moment. Then we start to really step into being the creator of our lives. And this was a big shift for me in my life when it came to wanting to understand how to attract or experience more of what I'm seeking, because I was like, well, I can study this or I can do this way, but I have to show up every day regardless. I have a daughter that I'm with. I have a wife. I got my family. I got business stuff. I have all these other things going on in my life. And I said, well, why can't I just use them to help me control my state better? And so, because when we're coming to attracting what we desire, and I'm going to get into this in just a minute, then all of a sudden it's in getting to more of a flow. I was just like, okay, this is happening. Let me just take a breather. Let me reset, get my energy where it needs to be. And then from there, I can go ahead and keep moving forward, holding in my peace, holding in my stillness, keeping my joy as much as I can, or my bliss as much as possible. I'm human. I'm not always good at it, or I don't master this all the time. Thankfully, I have a lot of opportunities to still do so, but it's helping me then to control me. And in there, I surrender to everything else. And I know that then with my energy staying in that place, which then all of a sudden, what I'm seeking, what I want to experience, I'm still attracting that, because where energy and vibe is what we're going to create. And that's why I want to get into here. Vibration and the observer effect. So the observer effect has always been taught, and I know that I've heard this many times in business, self-help, spiritual groups, and all that. Like, what you observe is what you experience because of the observer effect. That's actually not true. Okay. if you read the studies or talk to someone who's a quantum physicist, they will, or quantum mechanic physicist and whatnot, the observer effect happened, right? Because they looked at something, and when they were looking, the photons shifted in direction. So for those who don't know what the observer effect is, just really quick, it was a study that was done, and they were looking at, are photons wavelengths, or are they actually particles? Particles is more physical, and wavelengths is more non-physical in essence. So when they were looking at it or not looking, it would create what's a wavelength pattern or interference pattern. So it showed up like in lines. That's how the sensors were picking up things. When they were focusing on it, it acted as a particle. And so this made it would shoot through a spot, through a little slit, and it would show up right there. Okay. They thought they did the whole experiment wrong. They redid it again, and we're getting the same results. And they're like, we don't understand why this. How does it know to behave a certain way and not a certain way? So that's where everyone thought, oh, how you observe things is what it becomes. But I thought the same thing up to about a year and a half ago. And then I found out that it actually is how they measured it is what changed the behavior. And I like that more because it makes more sense. The reason why it makes more sense is because how you define your life is what you're going to experience. And I'm not going to get into this whole tangent on that. I'll get off on a tangent, but that's what I realized when I was like, okay, so how I define it, how I see something. This is great. This is where I was like, okay, that makes more sense when it comes to how to let go of resistance and get more into that flow. How to not get into like, this is how it should be, or this is what it should. Instead, just be like, let me take a step back, because how I see it is what it's going to become. And if I can shift myself in any way, shape, or form, energetically speaking, consciousness speaking, then I know that I'm going to hit other higher centers of my brain, and I can see stuff in a different perspective. This is why sometimes when you have a problem in life, or where you're getting really frustrated, getting really heated, just take a step, go for a walk, get moving. For men, for the most part, we got to get physical, in the sense like go for a run, go for a walk. Nature is good for everybody, but men's nervous system, we need more a physical stressor on it. Not saying women can't have that either. They can. Women are just more involved than men are. Some men don't like me saying that, but it is true. But it's one of those things where, at least neurologically speaking, I'm talking about. But it's one of those things that we got to get that energy out so that we can recenter, because it could disrupt the nervous system and so much more. So when we're looking at that vibration in the observer effect, it is one of the things that it's how you define it. So what I mean by define, I want to get real clear on this. This is where the big thing comes in. I'm going to go a little deeper into this a little later. But it's when we allow the personal mind to take over. When we think that something, when we look outside, let's say somebody said something, or somebody had a really nice car, they wanted to talk to you about it. Hey, I just bought a Bentley. In our mind, we make it personal. Like, oh, I would never get a Bentley. It's too expensive. I mean, how many people have been there? You heard somebody who had some really great success, or they bought something really nice, and in your head, you're like, yeah, no, I would never do that. Not at all. You just made the whole experience personal to you, instead of being looking at from the person's side and being happy with them. But personal can happen many of these ways. Somebody can say something to you, and boom, there goes that mind. Starts chattering away. And now all of a sudden it's like, well, what did she say? Why did they say it that way? What did they mean? They mean this. Hey, they didn't call me. Why didn't they call me? Well, does that mean this and this? We play scenarios in our head all day long. This is what the mind does. Relationships, we do it like crazy. And business and life, career, money, we do it like crazy. So it's getting away from that monkey mind, right? And again, how do we define something? How do we understand that when these things are happening, all they are molecules and atoms, right? That's all that is in this world that we're seeing is molecules and atoms, okay? And they're coming through our eyes, and your brain renders this into an image, and then we start to we have this experience called life, okay? And that's all it is. At the end of the day, it's just molecules and atoms. That's all there is. And that's all we're seeing. It means absolutely nothing except how you define it, except how you define what you're seeing. You look at your bank account, for some people, they'll be like, yeah, it's doing great. For some people, not so great. Why? Why do you define it in that way? Who taught you that? Now, I want to get away. This is where we'll get into some matrix and conditioning mindsets and all that. And I'm not going to get into that for tonight's talk, but it's really understanding that concept of who taught us and conditioned us in that way, because we define things in a certain way. So your happiness is how you define it. Your joy is how you define it. Getting in the flow is how you define it. And letting go of these conditions and these processes and all this stuff is going to be a huge role in that, because at the end of the day, your vibration, specifically your emotional frequency. This was why I love when Tony Robbins says your state of being, where the state is what control and makes experience what you experience in your life, how you attract things. So your state, well, your state is an emotional aspect. Yes, there's a mental component to it also, but it's that moment and how much are you honestly firing that all the time? Which one are you giving into? Resistance or in flow? Flow does not have negative low vibrational frequencies. Flow has none of that. Flow is going to be more of, you're going to experience some stillness. You may feel some peace. You may feel some calm, joy, or bliss. I mean, those are usually the five that I've noticed in my experiences and many others that I've talked to. Right. So when you're looking at your life, if you have a low vibrational frequency, or you don't feel happy, or you're you're feeling the blues of life, you're stuck in the mind, you're creating resistance. It's that simple. But there's ways we can shift that and get into the other side. Because when you want something in your life, instead of wanting the thing, focus on the energy. What does it feel? Why does it feel? Here's a simple one. Business, people I work with in business is always like, they want to make more money, right? They want to grow their business. They want to expand. They want to scale. They want this. They use all the verbiages and the terms and all the cool stuff. And it's like, great. What's the emotion of why you want that money? What the heck's it to do for your life? It's just money. You can't take it with you when you pass on and transition into this another world, go back into home or whatever whatever your beliefs may be. But at the end of the day, it's just money. So what are you going after? What do you want to experience? Well, I love to have more time with my kids. Great, let's work off that. Why is that important for you? Well, because being with my kids, it's family, man. They're really okay. They're my legacy, really, because that's what really matters to me. Awesome, I can work off that. Let's keep talking, right? And then it's just shifting perspective to get them into that alignment of that feeling. And then we hone in on that. And then I'm telling them all the time, 3 times a day minimum, I want you to focus on that feeling in the morning, in the middle of the day, and at night. In the morning, and I'll give you guys some more tools, but this is one of them. Every morning I tell them to get up. First thing in the morning, before you do anything, you just put your hand on your heart and say, man, it's an amazing day today. We're going to experience some amazing things. Mind, I'm looking forward for you. I'm telling you that I want to help me see the amazing stuff that's happening today in my life, because I know it's going to be an amazing day. You can't just BS yourself by saying it. You got to feel it, right? So the feeling has to come there. So then I tell them, hone in on that vision of what it is. So for me, I want to see myself being with my family more. I'm going to be myself spending time with them more. My daughter, she actually, as of late in the last couple of weeks, she loves seeing me in the morning. Like, she gets really upset if I'm not home when she wakes up. And sometimes I'm either going to the office or something along that beat. But 3-4 days out of the week, I make it work. 3 days I can't. All right, at least right now. And it's so, but it's so in my head every morning when I do have to go to the office, I don't get upset about it, saying, "I'll see, I can't make my daughter. I got to hear her later that, my wife was like, yeah, she was looking for you," and it just breaks my heart. No, instead I'm like, when I get up that morning, I put my hand on my heart and I'm just saying the same thing. Man, I just can't wait. I'm going to see myself waking up. Today is a transition day to help me. I'm going forth. There's going to be amazing things happening today. It's going to lead me towards where I want to go, which is spending more time with my daughter every single morning, and making breakfast or going out and do whatever she wants to do in the morning. I could care less what she wants, whatever she wants to do. And I tell myself that, and it's important. And my wife's involved in that statement too. And it only takes about 5 to 10 minutes. It's the first thing I do every single morning. And I could tell you it's powerful. I actually started getting back into this year, and I've been blown away of what's been transitioning in my life just in the last 5 months. And, I don't speak too much about it yet because there's still some things are working themselves through, but I sit back and I'm just like, this is so cool how things, again, I know this stuff, but I'm testing everything out again to be like, I just want to focus on that. So when you hone the state of your emotions and your thoughts and how you're feeling and how you're reacting, which is even more important, then it shifts. And the same thing at lunch, you're just reiterating what you did in the morning. And at night, you look for your gratefulness for what showed up that made it an amazing day, no matter how small it is, because you have to hone that vibration. It's consciousness. It's vibration. Remember what I said, you can't escape something from what you're giving attention to. You're feeding, it's like there's the story. You ever heard the story of the two, I'm going to mess this up. I think it's the two wolves. I think it's the two wolves. I can't remember if it was Native American or not, but anyhow, long story short, grandkid asks his grandfather, "Hey, grandpapa," I'm just going to go Papa. I don't even know if that was it, but he's like, I remember the meaning of the story. So, and he was like, "I have these two wolves. How do I have win one?" He said, "Stop feeding the one. Just stop feeding it, and it'll wither away." So what we feed in our lives is based on the vibration of what we're emitting out there. And the key is understanding, right? We look at define it. So we want to take a step back here. I want to make sure I mention this. We said the observer effect was really about the measurement and how they defined it. How when they're measuring something, what actually affected it. So in your life, you don't define your life by where you are. You define your life by where you want to go or what you want to experience. Maybe a vision, a dream, a big, whatever that is, and define it there. It doesn't, what I mean by that is this, like, okay, you look at your bank account, you want to be a millionaire. You're looking at your bank account, not there. That's okay. You're a millionaire. You're defining your life as a millionaire already. And as you stay in that consciousness, just like I talked about earlier with the emotions and what's important for you, you emit that out there and that starts to alter things. We send that frequency out into the universe matches that frequency and brings things back, people, circumstances, and situations. And when we can trust the process, that's flow, trusting that process. This is when it becomes the game changer. And like I said, things will happen faster. I cannot reiterate that enough, but it happens at where you need to be. Now, I'm not getting biblical here about Adam and Eve, but I want to talk about more about personal mind and understand a little bit more of who we are as a source. We're consciousness at the end of the day, right? And and when we look at things, when we look at Adam and Eve, this is actually the symbol of duality. If from the biblical side, the Garden of Eden, they had the fall of grace, but they really never had a fall of grace. What it really was the separation from awareness, pure consciousness, to identification or ego, personal mind. And so that separation is what gave them the ego, right? Edging God out in that essence. And when we step back into flow, when we align with our source, the true essence of who we are, things will start to click. And it's amazing to see what shows up. I've had people tell clients of mine they're lucky it worked out for them that way. And I said, there's no such thing as luck in this world. It's all about alignment. When we're aligned and ready, things work. And so it's what I'm sharing with you tonight. It seems easy on paper, but the practical purposes is really hard. So I'm challenging you guys to try that. Hey, today's gonna be an amazing day, no matter where I'm at, and whatever it is that you're seeking. Right? It's just an amazing day today. I'm gonna see some amazing stuff. This is a transition period of my life. I'm moving for more closer and closer every day to where I want to be. Every single day, it's happening regardless. Right? And you put that energy out there every single day, and you have to know within, because at the end of the day, your consciousness. Who's the person watching this? It's not you. Who's the person behind that then? Right? You've been listening to me talk for about 30, 40 minutes right now, and you probably had some thoughts running through your head as you were doing that, right? That's that mind coming in. Oh, I like what he's saying there. That's the mind kicking in. Oh, I didn't like what he said there. Or I disagree. That's the mind kicking in. So there's both sides to it. And so instead it's just being in flow, in state, and just here, present. I'm just using that as an example, but every facet of our life. How do we, get to that point to where if you can go there and stay in that consciousness, the kingdom of God, right? As Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you. And if you can, or he said, the Father and I are one, right? It's all the same consciousness at the end of the day. And when we look at from that perspective, you are consciousness. And when the more you can tap in and stay in alignment with that, I am telling you, from my own personal experiences, you'll experience heaven on earth and so much more. Because the aspect of duality only exists because it's in the mind. Duality does not exist in the spiritual realms. It's only here that duality exists. But if you can step and stay in flow, you don't have duality. And I shared an example of it, just how the personal mind loves to get into that state. Oh, I like this or I don't like that. I'll take this as an example. Raise your hand if you meditate at all. All right, pretty much almost everybody here does. Okay, great. Have you ever said to yourself, and raise your hand if you did, man, that was a great meditation. I loved it. I've done it. I fall into that trap often. I was just telling a client last week about it. I was trying to get him into a meditate state and talking about some things about how to, get to that beautiful bliss state. And I was like, I just had it yesterday. It was amazing. I loved it. And then afterwards, I was like, there it is. I got caught. Just enjoy the moment, be in the flow. Instead, I personalized it. What's good and what's bad based on my values, based on my train, all that stuff. And so it's really coming back. Flow has no judgment. There is no good or bad. It just is. And you're accepting and being, just like the spiritual aspects, or if you want to say the soul aspect of you, the true consciousness level of you, does not judge things, doesn't have good or bad or anything. It just is. And that acceptance and that flow process to it. So that's where I thought that would be, something to share there. But let's put some practical stuff together, because I've been kind of talking a lot on just concepts, and I love to bring things in. So one of the things that, if you heard me say, a lot is, I threw little tidbits in there about vision or focusing on something you desire or choose, and I can't tell you how important that is. Universe speaks in images, which has energy imprints into it, where if you can portray that vision out and cast it out there, it has a vibrational frequency to it, and so much more. And then what you put into it is going to add more to it. And that's how we can bring things in. And really, the flow part is having faith to know that it's going to happen. Because when you truly understand the power of who you really are, the power inside you creates this whole universe. Those who want some science behind that, and not so on the esoteric side, um, quantum mechanic principle, called the Pauli exclusion principle, states that there's no two things in the universe that are identical, which means there's no two humans that have the same value system. There's no two humans that will ever exist the exact same two humans will never exist in the entire experience of life. So there's no other human that comes to this place that will be like you. There's no soul like you. There's no anything like you. No snowflake is alike, which that blows my mind. How there's no snowflakes that are identical. Um, so when you're thinking about that, that's how important you are. That's how unique you are. But that's also where your power is. And so when we can understand that principle, now you truly understand you have something to share with the world, and you have something great to give to the world. We all do. Because when we give to the world, you're not just giving to the collective consciousness, or what I call the matrix. You're also then giving it to Mother Gaia, or Steve likes to say, Paji Mama. And then you're leveling up to the solar system, and then to the, long story short, to the universe, and then the multi-universe, and then basically to God, whatever that is, source, prime director, whatever your beliefs may be. And so it's that how important you are in this whole thing we call the game of life. And so understanding that. So when you declare, then, we were created in the likeness and image of God. I read in my first book, I said that we are God. I got a little kickback from that. But as I explained it, people appreciated it more. You are a creator, and you get to choose. You're co-creating in the process. When you choose, the way I tell people to choose is you got to utilize a vision. You have to see it in your mind, because if you can't see in your mind, it's not going to happen. The beautiful thing is, though, if you can visualize it, if you can think it, then it's possible for you. Because the other rule is, if you can't put it together in words, or even visualize, or just share it, if you're not able to do that, if you are able to do it, you'll achieve it. If you can't, then you won't. So it's really getting clear with that. And this is where visualization is something that I'm really big on. Meditating with vision. So I vision, like I said earlier, spending time in the mornings. What does that look like in my head? How do I play this movie? And it's taken me quite a while to get really crystal clear on it. But how do I play this movie in my head? Seeing the feelings and the emotions, like I'm watching a movie, getting pulled in, and going, okay, this is what I want. This is the experience that I'm creating, and this is it. And then I have to let go, right? Because I can't control everything else. And that's where I let go, and I just choose to go ahead and trust and surrender to the process of how it's going to happen. I'm going to trust in that journey that I know it's going to get there, right? I have the faith to know it's going to get there. Because when we understand the true essence of who we are, which is consciousness, and we actually alter matter and our reality, this is where it becomes a point that when I can just hone in and I know this, This is what I'm choosing. Here we go. This is why I tell a lot of my clients, and I said this earlier in this talk, you want to make sure that you stay fixed on your vision, but be flexible on the way how you get there. You're going on a whitewater rafting, you're going downstream, you're hopping on that raft, you know you're going to get to the end. You just have no clue of where this thing's going to go, the ups and downs, and the joy behind it. And the beautiful thing is, in my experience at least, your soul seek that. That's why you're here, right? You're not going to go and say, I want to go whitewater rafting, but you're going to tell the guide who's going to be in there with you on the raft saying, hey, you know what? Let's take this thing out of the water. Why don't you hop us in a car, take us down to about maybe 100 feet, and then we'll hop in and just go for the ride. What's the point of that? Nobody would do that. That's the experience of life. And it's trusting the process. It's letting go and knowing that you're going to get there. How it's going to show up is always going to be defined for you. And that's the importance of alignment with the essence of who you are. And this is where, when it comes to that alignment, again, it's coming back to those feelings: joy, bliss, calm, stillness, peace. And when you're in alignment with source, soul, however you like to call that, these are the emotions that come up. And that will navigate to where you need to go in that journey to go where you have to be. It's going to guide you. I call it the soul's compass, your intuition, because it's going to guide you to what's important for you. Not what's important for someone else, not the reels you see on Facebook or Instagram or someone else's story of their success. Does not matter. It's what matters for you and the journey you have to go through. And that's something, excuse me. And that's something I tell, I have to remind clients a lot, and I have to remind myself a lot too. There are things I need to go through because I have to, it's for me that I chose to come here to experience, and I have to go through it in that way. And this is the critical important of flowing, so you don't create resistance, but also aligning and making, knowing within from the feeling side that as long as you stay in that alignment, what those feelings are showing up, you're where you need to be, even if it's scary. Jesus is about to get crucified. He knows what he's going to go through. And yet he delivered, said, not my will, but the will of you, God. And he let go. And from letting go comes peace, alignment. When people transition, a lot of times, sometimes people fight. But when they finally let go, they see the peace overcomes them. And so that's where, again, it's alignment within. Trusting. You have to trust within to know that it's going to do that for you. I can't tell you enough. I mean, I can tell you only this: everything works out the way it's supposed to. And I can tell you that it's, as long as you stay focused on what it is that you want to create and you can see it in your mind, it will happen for you. Now, I can't tell you when it's going to happen. Just like when I work with a client and they're paying me $1,000 plus an hour, plus a month. And I tell them, don't know how you're going to get there. Don't know when you're going to get there, but we'll get there. They look at me and go, what the heck did I just invest in? But I'll say, we're going to show you. And as we go through the work, sharing what I shared with you today, getting clear on the vision, what's important to them, and so forth, and then trusting the process and doing the work, the real work of how I react. Man, did I react today in a positive way? Did I react in any way? Did I let my personal mind lead the way, or did I stay more in this observer effect by just observing? No good or bad, just is. And these are big things to look at. So I want to share the path to give you something here, just to, like, a little bit of a process here to help a little bit. So you want to spot the resistance. You guys already have been, you kind of know what that is. That's that lower consciousness emotions: fear, worry, anxiety, shame, guilt, all that stuff. Okay, these are things that will show up. It's not the positive side. It's the more of that, the low, I don't even want to say positive, just higher vibration. And so when those are showing up, or you're not feeling excited to do something, even though it might be a business of yours, or maybe a relationship, it might be your own health, you're not excited to do that, then you're that's resistance already there. Like, for example, I love to work out. I don't like to work out to be in a specific shape. I love that my body's able to do those things. I'm able to do that, and I'm happy that I can. And I know the more I continue to do that, I'll be able to do that longer in my life, because a vision of mine is that, I'm going to be an older dad, and I want to be able to stay as young as I possibly can, moving wise, with my kids and my grandkids. When I'm in my 70s and 80s, and I become a grandpa, God willing, then I'm able to be able to play with them like I'm in my 30s. That's a vision I have. And I just keep telling myself that. Somebody says, how are you going to do it? I have no clue. I'm not trying to figure it out. I'm staying in the state of flow. All I know is as long as I keep moving and I do the things and whatever is going to help me along the way will come when the time's right. And I just stay in that state. So, and I get very excited. I did a run right before the call, hopping on here, just to do it. I wanted to do it. I wanted to get, it was just something I was like, okay, I could run still. I could still do those kind of things at the level, somewhat of a level. So I get excited about it. But some people may not get excited about working out. Oh, here we go again. I got to go to the gym or I got to go do this. That's resistance. Okay. Or sometimes it comes if you're a business owner. Oh, I got to go do these things, right? All business owners have things they don't like to do. That's not true. You just don't know how to connect the value system to understand how to connect your higher value systems with the lowers to do that, right? Because business advice would be just delegate the things that you don't like to do. Great. Tell that to someone who's starting up. They got to do all the different things, but it's how you approach that, right? Again, I'm really trying to hone in on here how important it is for vibe and energy with this. So when you have the lower sensation, that's resistance. You raise your vibe. Okay. I'm not saying if let's say you're experiencing some depression or you're low self worth, something's not going the way you like, and you get really in that run. I'm not saying to go from there to go to joy. That's not what I'm trying to share here. When it comes to raising your vibe, you can be in a state of guilt and maybe anger or frustration is okay. That's better. Now I know that sounds weird for some, but that's David Hawkins. He has the whole consciousness of emotions. Abraham Hicks talks about them too, and so many other people do. But this is stuff I started doing when I was in coaching. Started coaching, was teaching people how to just, if you're here, just get to the next ladder. How can you get to that emotion? I'm not concerned about you being at this frequency and it means this and that. It doesn't matter. All I care about is you just raising your vibe, even if it's that monumental, because that's good enough. Because here's a rule of the brain. When it comes to doing something, your brain can't, if you say, hey, I'm going to be a billionaire, for me to say I'm going to be a billionaire, my brain looks at me and goes, yeah, buddy, that ain't happening. Okay. It's too big of a gap. And the brain shuts down anytime it gets overwhelmed. Start with small, simple things, bite size, crumb size. Doesn't matter the size, just whatever that may be. So this is the same thing for emotions. You're trying to go way to the top. Well, I shouldn't be in this feeling, so I need to. This was me years ago. Positive thinking, positive by psychology, studying all this stuff, and understanding the quantum side, energy side, and all that. And I'm going, no, I can't have negative thoughts. No, low vibration. Or if I was getting in a rut, no, I got to go to joy. I got to get into the bliss state. I got to get excited. I have to have enthusiasm. What I didn't realize is I was getting burned out and exhausted just from that process until I started to say, you know what, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of anger. I'm not in a great state. This happened a couple weeks ago. I wasn't in a great state. I got into some negative thinking, low self-worth stuff. And all of a sudden I said, you know what? I literally pulled up the emotional chart and looked at it. And I said, okay, where am I at? And I said, okay, I'm right about here. I feel like I'm right here. Okay, what's the next emotion? Oh, anger. Great. I know what I can do with some anger. I'm going to go work out. And I went and did a heavy workout. All the anger that was coming up felt great. Then I was able to skip a couple steps in the ladder. So I hope this is resonating with you guys, and this is what I'm trying to share here, to really in that process when it comes to that. But then from there, once you raise your vibe, and this is what I tell coaching clients, I don't want you to do anything unless you're feeling absolutely enthusiastic and passionate about it. I don't care if it takes you a week, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. You don't do anything unless your vibe feels good with it. This is why I said earlier in the talk, when you're going to, if you're overwhelmed, you're getting this low vibration, overthinking, whatever that may be, resistance, stop. Don't do anything. That's the reason why I would give that advice. You stop and don't do anything until you're feeling good again. And once your vibe's back up, then you act, because everything is vibration first. This is what I teach business clients. A lot of times they're 90% doing, and I tell them you got to be 90% being. And this is where it comes from. In a relationship, it's the same thing. You're really upset with your spouse. Don't talk to them. Because if you keep talking when you're in a bed, how many times you've been there? And raise your hand. I mean, you don't have to. I will. When you get frustrated in a relationship, and then you're trying to solve it while you're frustrated. It doesn't work. It's like oil and water. It just keeps separating. Take a break. I had a licensed clinical social worker give me this advice years ago, and I remember one time he would tell me about him and his wife, and he'd be like, "Yeah, when I get frustrated, I'll tell him I'm just not." He's like, "I'm not in a great mindset right now. I just need to take some time to myself. I'll come back to you when I'm feeling in a good state. I'm sorry, you may want to be talking about this right now, but unfortunately for me, I'm just not there. I can't receive it and listen." And when he said that to me one time, I was like, "That's." I'm always been like the guy who's like my driver's side comes out and it's like, "No, I want to solve this. Let's go." And it would always, being Italian, we can heat things up pretty quick. And so I was like, okay, that is great advice. And then my wife's the one who taught me that because she would break away and I would be upset about it. But then I learn and go, hold up, this is all about vibration. I'm taking time away. I can calm, I can recenter, I get my energy right. And then all of a sudden, we've been practicing this probably, I don't know, we've been married 10 years, going to be this year. And probably in the last 7 years, we've been really working on this, especially in the business we had to do this. So we're kind of forced our hand in it, but it worked. We wouldn't talk unless we were in a better state. And the issues we had was solved within like maybe 30 seconds to a minute. She would express something and I was like totally understanding where she was, or I expressed something, the same thing. And I'm like, this stuff really works. Okay, cool. So you can apply it in your relationships and every other facet, but you don't take action until you do that. And that's just where it's very important. It's the be do have model. There's so many things out there that I can share of different things, but that's the essence. And so if you get anything out of tonight, is that last one. Don't do anything until you feel really, really good about it. Don't feel anything until your vibe is high. That's I can't harm that and emphasize that enough. I had a client who hated doing social media work and he would get frustrated with it. He hated it. He just like, there's no return, there's no this. And I was like, I get it. I understand. And then one day I told him, just stop. He goes, no, but you said you need to content it. I said, stop. You don't need any of that. Let's do some other things right now. Let's just not do anything. And let's just get you back into a good state. He literally got excited. He wanted to create this whole real thing and whatever. We did all this work and the interactions. He was a coach and he got a couple clients out of it. He's like, I've been posting this stuff for the last 6 months straight and I got nothing. Then you told me to do nothing. And then all of a sudden I felt good about wanting this one little thing and I went to do it and everything changed. And I said, your vibe's in the right place. And so if you get anything out of tonight, that is the thing I want to really, really hammer for you guys. You have greatness within you. Now, something that if I've said, I teach this and I Rediscover Your Greatness is one of my first books. And it's one of those concepts of you have this greatness within you. It's there. It exists. The greatness of you is that you are the likeness and image of God and that you can create and co-create anything you want. You can be, do, have anything you want. I know that sounds like wishful, hopeful, good inspiration to somebody. But the science proves it. Quantum physics proves that everything's a frequency and vibration. All it is a vibration. Hone in onto everything and understand if you want to be in a flow state, you have to trust the process. You're co-creating with the universe. Your mind can only know 0.0001%, give or take, of all the information out in the world. Your mind is limited by perspective. It doesn't have a 360-degree view. But yet, the co-creator, who you work with, does. So for me in my life, I'd rather work with that because it knows way better what I need specifically, because you'll get what you need before you get what you want. And I know if I can know that's going to work in that way, then I need to take a seat back and just trust. And I can only control one thing. And we shared that tonight. And that is your reaction to things, your vibe based on an emotional standpoint. Where are you putting your focus and attention to? How do you react to certain things? And when you can do that, it literally transforms your life in every facet that you can possibly imagine. You can play around with this. And what I'm going to challenge you with is do it in one area of your life. Do it in the one that you focus on the most that's bothering you. Now, we can do this in everything, but I want you to just focus on one. We don't want to overwhelm the brain and all these other things. We just want to do one simple thing and start there and apply this stuff and get into a flow state. See it how you want it to be. The vision of it all, whether it's a relationship, your health, money, a career, whatever that is, and just see it there and just know it's going to happen. You know it's going to happen. Shoot, the universe is waiting for you to tell it. You know, when someone says, I'm chasing a dream, I always shake my head and go, why are you chasing a dream? You can't chase a dream. You only can attract it. And so that's the key point of when it comes into your life, know that all you have to do is declare it. That's it. No plan B, no plan C, no plan D, E, F, G, and so forth. This is what I want to choose, and that's it. But universe, I know you're going to bring to me whatever it is that I need in that process. Thank you so much, for this, and I appreciate you for all the amazing things that are showing up in my life. I'm grateful for all of this and the process to do that, and it will work out for you. And it worked out for so many others. I tell clients all the time. And one client I just had to share this with, sharing this, and he's like, "That's all good inspirational stuff, Doc." I said, "Well, go listen to inspirational stories, like a Steve Harvey sleeping in his car for 3 years, wishing at 10 years old he wanted to be on TV. He didn't get his first big break until 38, but he kept the vision. He kept doing it. Tyler Perry, homeless to multimillionaire. Steve, what's his name? Jim Carrey. I can go on and on and on. You get the point. That's where if your mind's playing a game with you, then read those stories, because what can happen for one can happen to others. And all it is vibration end of the day. And you have that greatness within you. You have to understand, if you needed some extra little oomph tonight, it's the Pauli exclusion principle. There's no two other beings in this world that are identical. You have uniqueness within you, and it has been scientifically been proven. And from that perspective, when you tap into yourself, you choose what it is you desire and just stay focused there. That is going to radically change. Just surrender to the process. It's a lot easier being said than done. I can promise you that much, because you're going to get what you need to help shift you and help you elevate to that higher vibrational state. And then when you're there, it happens way faster than you can ever imagine. That is all I got for you guys tonight. I'm trying to get to the last slide. There it is. So I appreciate you taking the time. I hope you try one of the challenges and really see how that will play a role and how it can really help. And I hope this really hit home in some way for you guys, to really maybe see something just slightly different. You may have heard this already before, kind of these things, but hopefully it was just that one little slight deviation of a degree where you're like, okay, that was said a little different. That hit home here, and that was my intention for tonight. So thank you so much.
All right. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Vic. We can open the floor up to questions now. And anybody have any questions for Vic or comments on the presentation?
Yeah, I liked waiting, like in a confrontational situation. You don't have to handle it right then or even say anything. Just give it some space until you're in the right vibe. That is such wisdom.
Yeah.
It's something I'm still practicing myself.
So I had a question. You mentioned, that in work, sometimes there are things that you have to do, or like, say, an example of being a parent, right? Sometimes there's things you have to do that you don't want to do as a parent. So how did you say that? Like, I think you said at work, you might be able to delegate it to somebody, but as a parent or at work, if you're a sole proprietor, there's nobody to delegate to. How would you handle something like that of the stuff, like let's call it the paperwork or whatever it is that you need to do?
Well, what it is so it's low value to high value. You don't value the low that stuff, so it annoys you, frustrates you, resistance, and all that. Your job is to then say, okay, how does this connect to my higher value stuff? How does this do? How do I? Because before, like, let's say, I'll stick to this. So it's looking at, let's say, I like speaking, I like teaching, I like this. This empowers me. Okay, great. This stuff I do here is what allows me to have more, freedom, or this allows me to do more, open up more opportunities to do that. So as much as I can't stand this yet, but I know when I do this, let's say, whatever, let's say you're saying paperwork, right? So as a doctor, I don't like documentation. It's a pain in the butt. Okay. Can't stand it. All right. Especially in today's world, it's even worse than it's ever been. But when I'm doing notes, I just sit there and I go, listen, I'm looking at the people I'm taking care of. I do this just to document so I don't have to deal with any headaches down the road. All this stuff. And yet, look at all the people that I care. So as long as I know I can take care of these, I'm taking care of my notes and doing what I need to do, even though I don't enjoy them. It allows me then to practice more. So I don't have to worry about someone coming back and saying, hey, what'd you do over here? And I have poor documentation. Next thing you know, I get a lawsuit or whatever, and I could lose my license, XYZ. I'm not doing it out of fear, even though it sounds like that. I'm looking at it from, hey, if I do this really good, then I can keep practicing and serving more and having a bigger impact. So I took what's more important to me, because I love just creating new things and being more, creating a bigger impact and doing those things. So I know that if I'm doing this part allows me to have more of that. So if I can just shift my perspective that way, it doesn't get to me as much. I'm not saying I still don't get frustrated at times. Trust me, I do. But it's one of the things where it allows me to just be like, you know what, that's fine. I know this is where this does this, and I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Thank you. Others, thoughts, what you liked, what questions you may have, or your own experiences in these areas? And there's a few people on mute. Feel free to come off of mute.
One of the last things that you said, as far as there may have been pieces that we've already heard before, but maybe the different way of phrasing it puts a different spin on it. And I can say for an absolute fact that I've experienced that multiple times when I have read through even a book that I've read through 4 other times. Somehow I was in a different place. I had different experiences since the last time I'd read that book. And a phrase that I had read many times before suddenly hits just slightly different, and a whole new world opens up.
I love that. Well, you just raise your consciousness, right? So you become more aware, and then it's like you're at a different stage of what you need, and it's like, oh yeah, it's been there all this time. I went back and listened to some of Abraham Hicks' work. I haven't listened to that in years, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, either I'm in a different state of mind or something, but I'm like seeing the wisdom in a whole different way. And I'm just like, this is so cool. It's like I'm reading this stuff in a whole different way than I've ever done before.
Mm-hmm.
No, I love that. Great. Thanks for the share.
Basically, you say that the key to the whole thing is the belief. No,
Yeah.
believing.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I get tangled up sometimes is I keep saying, oh, I believe, but there's that little questioning is it really? How do you overcome that?
Well, here's the thing. What's a belief, right? We got to first define that. And a belief is just consistent thoughts over a period of time that get hardwired into a brain. Then all of a sudden say, okay, this is just it. So how do you get over it is by literally hardwiring your brain by saying, no, this is what it is, regardless of what's showing up. And I hope that makes sense, because when we're looking at the aspect of when we're saying, well, this is what my belief is, my new belief is going to be. But what your mind's doing is challenging that by looking in the moment and trying to show you. Remember I was saying like outside world is just molecules and atoms, but yet we render that in and make it personalized. So we say, well, yeah, this is my new belief, but look what's happening here. That's not showing up that way. And you have to be like, no, this is what it is regardless. And keep telling yourself that no matter what and feeling that. Now, in the beginning, you're going to feel like you're lying to yourself. That's normal. That's okay. And there'll come a point where you really feel that way. Like it starts to feel it in the body, like tension building up. That's good. You're breaking the neuropeptide process. So neuropeptides are when you have a thought and it creates a chemical reaction and your body feels it in that way. You're just conditioned or addicted to that neuropeptide process that's happening. That's all it is neurology at the end of the day. And so for you, when it comes to a belief, remember, it's all about beliefs are just a consistent thought. That's all it is over a period of time. And when you understand it from there, you know that there's going to come a point that my neurology is going to shift and believe this. It will happen. If you keep focusing with that intention of knowing and saying this is what it's going to be regardless, it will shift. And if you want a time frame, it takes about 84 days for that to happen, neurologically speaking. So give yourself a break. Don't ignore what you see in the moment. I know that's sometimes not good to say. Sometimes I can't believe you say that. Well, it's true though. Ignore it. Focus on what you want to create and know that you are creating it, and that's your new belief, whatever that is. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just have a question about your books, and which book would you recommend for someone who's never read anything from you or heard much about you?
Well, I think so. I'll share. I'll share what all three are, and then you feel which one resonates. Then, so rediscover your greatness is the first one I've written, and it's all about like understanding focus, words, how you create your life and your world in death, and how to really tune into the essence of who we are. A walk in the dark is all about navigating the hardships of life. We're gonna have hardships for the rest of this is part of the experience, right? It's contrast. And so, what are tools and tips to help you recenter and sit in the darkness, and how you get these beautiful gifts when we do that? A lot of times, the mind's going to recreate that resistance and push away. It's always trying to keep you comfortable and keep you safe. And it's like, no, 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 let's turn that off. How do I get still, align with source, and be able to sit in that darkness and get the gifts and the beauty of what comes from there? My latest book was about the decoding the matrix, and it's all about the conditioning of the mind, how we get conditioned, how the matrix or the collective consciousness plays a role in all that, and then how do we step out of that, and how can we? What's the biggest thing that I've experienced and it's worked for me, and to do that, and then what I share with my coaching clients, and so much more on those things, so that way you can then not only create your own vision for yourself, not only stay and break out of the matrix so that you become aware of when it is playing a role on you, but more importantly, then it's also about serving humanity. As I shared earlier, you're going to give to others in a way that you're going to raise your consciousness level. It affects others, creates a ripple effect, and it works its way up the matrix. And that's how we really change the world and change all that, the quote unquote problems that we see and so forth.
Yeah.
So out of those three, what one resonated with you the most, if you don't mind me asking?
I think the second and the third.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So yeah, and I think there's a little thing in the chat where you can see them of which book there
Actually,
and so forth.
on Amazon, I only found the third one listed. I'm not sure why the other two didn't show up.
I'll pull it up here. I got my. Let me see. Oh, walk in the dark. Amazon doesn't like me. You can put a walk in the dark in there and it won't show up. Walk in.
Huh.
I don't know. I've had my SEO all done too. There it is, and then I'll pull. And wait for it to show up. There we go. Let me pull my author page, and you should get all three. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. And let me get on Zoom. All right, it is in the chat. So that's all three can be seen there.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Very good.
that's great. Thank you.
No, my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
And I see Jorge is there. Did you have any questions or comments? Okay.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Vic, did you mention at one point before, in a prior conversation, you have a workshop coming up, or?
I do. I have an online program that's coming out. It's called Unlock Your Greatness. And so there's various parts to it. So like some of the stuff we talked about today will be shared in there, but way more in depth. Remember I said there's a whole surrender process, and I was like, that's a whole workshop in itself for me to dive into. And so forth. But that we have coming up. We're releasing it at the end of the month. Right now we have a wait list, so you can join the wait list if you like. And if you do that, you get a steep discount to the program. Because we're going to market it first to our wait list, and they're going to get that nice steep discount, and then we'll market out to the public from there, and they will not be getting that steep discount.
So what would they do to get on the wait list? Could they put the email in the chat, or if they wanted to?
I can do this. Give me 1 second. I'll pull it up. Bear with me. And I could just put it in their email. Gotta love my protocols of security here. Give me a second. I always joke with my wife. I'm like, if you have to get something in mind, just know you need my phone, or you have to have access to email, or both, because some of them are both of them. And I'm like, but this is all good. All right, there it is. Cool. So I'll have it in the chat there. And like I said, there's no obligation if you are interested, or if you just even want to see what that's all going to be. It's right there. it's just again, you just you can learn a little bit more about the program on that landing page, and then you'll be, if you want to do register, or like not register, join the wait list, you just put your name and email in there, and then you'll be automatically in there. And then when we release it, when we start marketing, it'll be sometime at the end of next week. We'll be sharing it to the wait list first, and there'll be like a 4 or 5 day registration period, and then we'll close it down, and then we're going to market it to the public.
And Dr. Vic is going to be speaking on one of our Tuesday evening sessions on June 3rd, right? I believe we
Yes.
date.
I'm looking at my paper. I think that's what it says.
It was June 3rd, and
Yep.
so if you wanted more information there too. Are there any other questions or any other thoughts, or Dr. Vic, any closing comments?
No, I mean, like I said, you have faith within yourself. You're more powerful than you could imagine. The one thing that we cannot do, even with the best quantum computer chips that Microsoft has just come out with, we still cannot predict or compute the level of power of what we have and what we can do. So when you really start to hone in on that, it's one of those things that it's just having the faith within yourself. And when you truly can sit with that and know that fear can't exist, none of those lower vibrations can exist, and you start really dictating your life in a way, like literally saying, here's what I want to experience. I trust that I know it's going to happen, and I know that's going to happen. And you experience that. And then you build on that. So just like in The Secret, just so everyone here listening, just like The Secret, when they tell you, just imagine the parking of a car, a parking spot, start small. Don't go to the $1 million right off the bat. Start small with just the parking spot, and then work your way from there.
Sounds good. Great.
Hey,
All right. Well, if
Awesome.
there's no other comments, then we'll close off for tonight. Thank you, Dr. Vic.
Yeah.
It was very
Thank you.
informative. Really appreciate it. I've got
Thank you.
I've got my list of things I have to go do now, so I'll let you know how that goes.
Thank you guys and everyone for being here. I appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
thank you.
Good night.
hey,
Yeah.
good night.